Welcome to Cordell and Cordell's Men's Divorce Podcast, moderated by Managing Partner and CEO Scott Trout, bringing you information for guys before, during, and after divorce, and everything related to family law. This podcast is not to be taken as legal advice, and no attorney-client relationship is established.
Hey, welcome to the Men's Divorce Podcast. I'm Scott Trout, Managing Partner and CEO of Cordell and Cordell. And we bring you more information for guys before, during, and after divorce on this podcast and trying to make sense of the challenges every guy faces in family law. And today is no different. We're going to talk about something really interesting and it comes up quite often. That is hiding assets and income. And how do you find them if you're on the opposite side? But I can tell you, it's always the question that we're asked, hey, how do I hide my assets? Should I hide my assets? And if I could answer that question, then I think I'd have a lot more clients than I could handle, but I certainly can't tell you how to hide them. So we're joined by Lauren today to talk about that. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Lauren. I'm an attorney here in the Dallas, Texas office, and I'm happy to be talking kind of thought of the fun name hide and seek for today.
Yeah, hide and seek is definitely appropriate. No doubt about it. And I think, and honestly, as you mentioned, I mean, it is, I'm in the process of trying to seek income on the other side. And that happens a lot where we have a spouse who claims, I don't have any money. I'm not making enough. And they're a cash tips type of employment. So we've got to go find it. Interestingly, I know we're going to talk about some of these areas that you can look. And, the first one, and obviously before we get further, this is not legal advice. This is, just really informational, educational. And the only way to do that is through a consult with one of our attorneys like Lauren. And you can find us on the web at cordellcordell.com or give us a call at 866-DADS-LAW. So, okay. One of the best ways to find stuff. Let's talk about the hide or the seek part a little bit. Discovery. Lawyers tend to use that word and really not give much thought as to explaining what it is. And that really, I would imagine, would be the first place if you're out there listening and watching. You want to go to your attorney and you want to talk discovery. So talk a little bit about discovery.
All right. So discovery, it's essentially an information gathering process that we use in litigation. And so especially in cases where finances are at issue, both sides are entitled to financial disclosure. But it's something that you have to ask for. So in Texas, like if child support's at issue, spousal support's at issue, the law does now require some initial mandatory disclosures, but the information is very minimal. It's like, hey, here, provide your last 2 pay stubs, provide the last 2 years tax returns or W-2s, but we all know that's not necessarily the end all be all of what income may or may not be. So you have to ask for this discovery. So there's different types of discovery. We call them requests for production here. So, hey, I want you to produce all these different types of records. You can do interrogatories, so send written questions to the other side saying, hey, I want you to answer all these questions. Or the problem with interrogatories is that you're usually limited on the number of written questions that you can send to the other side. So another option would be a deposition to actually sit down and have a conversation. And what's nice about depositions too is that you don't necessarily have the other side's attorney filtering the answer for you. Yeah. You get the response, you get it directly from the person. You can also do appraisals, go out and actually inspect the property, things like that. So there's all different kinds of mechanisms that you can use in this case. In your case, it's just that you have to know what they are and actually know what to request.
Yeah, I mean, when we do these seminars, 10 stupidest mistakes guys make when facing divorce, and we're getting ready to do one in Atlanta in July 20th and 21st. So check it out on our website, cordellcordell.com. It's free. 10 stupidest mistakes. Come join, ask questions just like this. Really, I think, good lawyers find bad people. And I say that because we use these mechanisms, depositions or appraisals, which lead to perhaps even subpoena. Like, for example, one of the cases I'm handling now, we're going after Venmo. There's a whole bunch of money where this client or the spouse on the other side is getting tips via Venmo. Magically, imagine it does not appear anywhere on their disclosure that they have a Venmo account with tens of thousands of dollars sitting in it. So we wouldn't know that without doing a deposition where they said, oh, yeah, I have a Venmo. Do you have a Venmo? Yes. And so now we get to go subpoena Venmo. So the question is, I kind of led into that is, okay, yeah, that sounds great, Lauren. We're going to do depos, but what's the point? What are these commonly hidden items? What are guys looking for? What is out there that they should be thinking about trying to discover?
Sure. And so, when we have these discovery requests that we use, they are, there's, a lot of attorneys have just some basic forms, things like that, but we shouldn't just stop at what's in the form book. We need to be thinking outside the box. A lot of these forms were created back before, I think Venmo was created. So you have to be keeping up with these different ideas. And so, for example, like Venmo or cash, these non-bank financial accounts like PayPal or cryptocurrency, you should be looking for these things. Cash is especially notoriously hard to trace. There is no record keeping of it generally unless somebody happens to be keeping, their own handwritten logs. So, there might be money in a safe. If you happen to know in your case that there might be cash laying around, if you happen to witness it, take pictures of it, count it. If you have employment that's based on cash, so like waitresses or waiters and waitresses, people in the service industry, babysitters, photographers, you want to look at like what their schedules are, what income, if they reported any on their income. So like in my state, the minimum wage for waiters and waitresses is $2.13 per hour because they get tips.
Right.
And so your paycheck, if you get them, is only going, sometimes it's zero. I remember that when I was in high school and college, having $0 paychecks because all of my income was just cash tips. And so and people don't always deposit all of their cash into their bank accounts. So, those are things that can be hard to trace. So you definitely need to be looking at that, and you can be asking, all right, well, what are your sales? What do you walk away with on a general night? Maybe be talking to some of the other people that work at that restaurant, or be going in and looking at the Venmo, his account history, things like that. So something with Venmo that was a recent development was the IRS kind of caught on. And so we may have heard lately that, now you're going to get a 1099 from Venmo if your transactions exceed like $600 in a given year. However, that's only if the transactions are actually marked when you make the payment as being for service. And I don't know about you, but I don't always check that.
Right.
So
ignore that.
Right. And so that can be, you can't just rely on the basic tax forms. You have to be asking for this Venmo, PayPal, actually looking for those records.
I think cash now in the economy and inflation and maybe, recession, I think you tend to start seeing people hoard cash and not putting them in institutions. There's, some negative press about banking institutions. And so you now start seeing people accumulating cash, especially as you suggest, those individuals who are getting tips, hairdressers, they may throw parties at night, this makeup and whatever it may be, and they're doing cash transactions, or they get checks and they just go to the bank and cash them rather than deposit them. So there's ways to look at it. I think it's a good start. I've subpoenaed just random banks, those that weren't even disclosed, just in the event that they may have an account that they didn't disclose. And believe it or not, I found them and that they're sitting there. And then, so I think that's really important. And crypto, you mentioned crypto, in the age of this, now people are saying, okay, I'll sell you this for cryptocurrency. Largely, very difficult to trace unless they keep it in, these general Coinbase apps, if that's where they're in transacting, crypto. You can subpoena that, but it's very difficult. And I know that's what the IRS is trying to clamp down on, the transaction of crypto. So uncashed checks and bonuses. I've actually had that happen where someone got a check and then just kept it for a while. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Or, especially like in a divorce, people think, all right, well, it's not going to hit in my bank account, but it's actually money that you have.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not sitting in your bank account. So that is includable. You can't hide it. That's if something's requested of you, you are obligated to disclose it. But again, the question being, all right, was it actually requested of you to
Right.
disclose it? But again, so you have to know to ask for it, especially if you're on the requesting side. Be looking for those types of things. That's especially common in independent contractor type cases, or people that own their own businesses trying to sit on information so it's not technically on the books yet. So you want to be looking for those type of things. So look at like employment contracts, look at the books and accounts receivable that these businesses have, so you can trying to track the income rather than just looking at the bank accounts.
Yeah, delaying invoicing, delaying the collection of receivables, postponing the billing of a project you're doing until, magically it's the week after the trial or the divorce judgment, those types of things. Those are often, you just have to ask the right questions. I think that's when you started with, how do you find things like that? That's discovery, it's deposition. And your attorney, that's why it's really valuable to sit down, one, with an attorney who practices in family law. And this is, if not exclusively, primarily, and they've got the experience and knowledge to know the questions to ask, because those are key. You're not going to get the answer unless you ask the right question. What are your projects that you have? When do they start? When do they finish? Have you billed them? What is the estimated, cost? Those types of things. Just ask the question. Do you have any checks, income or otherwise, you have not yet negotiated or cashed? Hope that you catch them. And they may say no, and they may maintain it. And if you can find it now, that leads into a whole nother topic in a podcast, which talks about credibility and catching someone in a lie. I always said in these seminars, again, I mentioned the seminars. If you have any interest, go to our website. We've got one in Indy, got one in Atlanta. It's really good stuff to just kind of digest about. There was a commercial in the 70s, Lay's potato chips. You just can't eat one. It's like a lie. You can't just have one lie. It's just a lie upon a lie that builds. And that's so key, especially in this area when you're trying to hide assets. And then of interest, I know you mentioned appraisals of property, but some people tend to hide furnishings, furniture, very expensive items, paintings, jewelry. They may, empty out a safe deposit box, if you know what that is anymore. It's not that popular anymore, but the safe, contents of a safe, those are things that you're going to want to inventory before you leave, take photos. So isn't that something also they should be concerned about?
Yeah, absolutely. So especially like with safe deposit boxes, there's generally not a register of what was actually inside of them. And so if you know that there's a safe deposit box in your case, go take a picture of the contents so you have record of what was actually there. And sometimes, one of the top 10 mistakes that men make in divorce is leaving the house. And so, but, if and when you do leave the house, you want to be taking a good look at, all right, well, what actually is in the house that's of value? That's often something that gets left off of the inventory spreadsheet when we're comparing what are the assets of the parties of, all right, well, you've got an entire household worth of furniture and furnishings and electronics and all these other things. And that has value. Mm-hmm. And so you want to be looking at, all right, well, is that rug that's in the living room, was that just like a $300 rug from TJ Maxx, or is it actually like, a nice $1,500 rug or even more? So a lot of times attorneys, we don't necessarily want to argue about, salt and pepper shakers and things like that, because that's not necessarily the best use of your attorney's fees. But in the aggregate, if you've got, a bunch of household items, that is something that you should be considering in as far as your assets. Another is like jewelry. Sometimes people have collections. I've got a client right now with like a comic book collection, or my husband has some different sporting goods equipment, things like that. That's actually very expensive.
Baseballs, signed jerseys, autographs, right? All this sports memorabilia is really a big one out there.
Yeah. And so, it might not be that important to you, and let the other side have it. But again, it has value. And so you want to be accounting for that as far as, division of the assets, or just generally what resources do they have available. If they're not wanting to pay, some of their support obligations, it's not like, all right, well, sell some of your things and then you'll have liquid cash available.
Yep. So, guys are thinking, okay, great, Lauren, sounds good. I get it. We want to find it, but what are the consequences if I don't ask the right questions, if I don't take your advice here, and I don't tell my lawyer, hey, do a depo, let's ask the questions. What's the downside?
All right. Well, so while you're in the litigation process, that is your opportunity to be asking these questions and making these investigations. And so if you had the opportunity to request it and didn't, that's going to be held against you. So if you find out, a month after your divorce is final, that, oh, well, I didn't know that they had this bonus coming. Well, that bonus was now received after divorce, and now that's not part of your property division. Versus, if you had known about it before, that may have been something that you could have addressed. So you could potentially be leaving money on the table. Property divisions and divorce, they're final. At least they are in Texas. I'm not sure in other states. But so you want to be careful and be looking at, in your divorce decree, do you have what I call global awards? So saying all bank accounts, all retirement benefits, the use of the word all is very important, because that's especially important when you're saying, all right, well, I knew about this one bank account, but I didn't know about this other hidden account. Well, you agreed to all. So regardless of whether or not you knew about it, you are deemed to have had the ability to find out about it then. But the important part too is that if there was an asset that wasn't divided in your divorce, and it wasn't actually addressed in your divorce property division, that's another can of worms. Texas, if sometimes people forget to, I forgot I had a house. It's unfortunate, but it just happened. It seems unrealistic, but it does happen. That sometimes people forget about to divide these big assets, and so then you could end up in post-divorce litigation to divide an undivided asset. Or the really big scary aspect is, what if it actually was requested of you and you didn't disclose it? Well, attorneys, we have a duty of candor, so we cannot help our clients hide assets. But if there was fraud, well, that can reopen your litigation too. So we definitely don't want to be in that sort of situation. The judge will not be happy with you.
I forgot this bank account. Really? Yeah. You have a statement sitting in your house. No, it is. It's one of those things. We brushed on the idea of believability, truth, and what the judge is your jury, and except in Texas and Georgia, you can have juries, believe it or not. And, candor isn't so important. And especially if you're trying to find the assets. So I think this is why I think this topic was so unique and good and timely, especially now when, times are tough and people are saving and trying to, scrape up money and whatever it may be, and distrust of maybe, bank institutions, those types of things. So thanks for joining today, Lauren. Good stuff. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Well, check us out, CordellCordell.com. You can check our YouTube channel. It is filled with videos, podcasts, town halls, which we do once every month. So check that out if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's where you can log in and log on and get online with a panel of attorneys for an hour. And we can ask questions and get answers right then and right there. Go to our website. You'll get more information about the next virtual town hall. We have seminars, like I mentioned, coming up in Atlanta on the 20th and 21st of July. free. Again, nothing, no tags, no nothing, no requirements. You just show up and you can just leave if you want. And so check us out. Again, give us a call, 866-DADS-LAW, CordellCordell.com. So until next time, have a great week.